Good evening, participants. My name is Amit Sharma from the IIA Delhi chapter. Thanks everyone for taking out time for attending this webinar on internal audit, myths and methodologies. Today's topic is a very different topic, something what we call it as hatke. So I'm sure you guys will have a lot of fun and understanding the analogies that our speakers are going to be talking today about history and internal audit. Just a few hygiene factors before I go about introducing our speakers for today. If anybody's got any questions during the course of this session, you can use the chat box and type your questions over here. The coordinator shall speak out the questions at appropriate times with the speakers and take it up. So having said this, let me go and introduce Deepak sir, Mr. Deepak Vadhavan, who's I think who needs no introduction to a lot of our members over here. He's been a stalwart with IIA. He's been an ex-CEO of the IIA India, and has taken a lot of our sessions, etc. For a long time. So let me not take you or delay this any further. Over to Mr. Deepak Vadhavan.
Thank you, Amit. At the outset, welcome dear participants and our Chief Advisor Nikhil Kochar to this experimental program on how we can facilitate knowledge retention. This is an outcome of a discussion between Siva and Sid, whom I'll introduce very shortly, on how we can use myths and work around this to be able to help everyone understand certain principles of internal audit, COSO model, standards of internal audit in a way that they can relate to each other. Mythology and myths are something we've all grown up with. It is ingrained in our mindset, a part of our culture, and so if we are able to link certain of these standards and principles and methodologies, it would be so much easier for our internal auditors when they actually were to apply it to be able to correlate to the situation. Siva Mr. Siva Subramaniam is currently working as the Chief Audit Executive of Titan Company, Tata flagship. He has 28 years of internal audit experience in both consulting and industry, and has worked with MNCs, Indian conglomerates, listed companies, as well as promoter-driven organizations in infrastructure, manufacturing, aviation, telecom to consumable durables, FMCG, retail, hospitality. So you see the breadth of experience he carries. He has seen different situations where these principles, methodologies, models, and standards are used across industry. And if he was able to get something very close to what you can relate to, which is myths and mythologies, it would be very easy for you to apply these professional literature across various industries. So his discussion was with Siddheshwar Bhalla, who, as you all know, is the president of IIA Delhi chapter, and he has 17 years of experience across all in professional firms like Deloitte, KPMG, EY, BDOG, NM Raiji, and is currently partner and national leader governance, risk and compliance Mazars in India. So just let me pick up the definition of myth so that we actually give it a certain sort of a professional touch to our discussion. So a myth is traditional or legendary story, usually concerning some being a hero or event with or without determinable basis of fact or a natural explanation, especially one that is concerned with deities or demigods and explains some practice, rite, or phenomenon of nature. I found this to be one of the easiest definitions. And mythology, of course, is a collection or a body of myths belonging to a certain group of people, which addresses the origin history, ancestries. So basically, myth and mythology are correlated. And I now take the opportunity to welcome Siddheshwar to please start this program, this research program in a way.
Thank you so much, Deepak sir. I think you've set the context aptly, and good evening all participants. Welcome to the webinar on internal audit myths and methodologies. Though I know Mr. Sivaraman Subramaniam, we popularly call him Siva, is going to make a good, excellent presentation, and it just started by my very brief discussion with him, 30 seconds, max 45 seconds. And it just clicked me. I said, yeah, we have to actually disseminate this knowledge, if I can say, to all our members, all our potential members as well. So I will just, I'm audible, no? I'm audible? Siva sir, just confirming. Yeah, I heard something. Yep. So just wanted to share a perspective on this topic before Mr. Sivaraman Subramaniam, he takes it over. Now, when we talk about internal audit, we basically are looking at the robustness of a control environment in an organization. Now, one may wonder that here we are talking about internal audit, robustness of control environment, and then we will be talking about something like mythology. Where are the learnings coming from? And when we talk about the robustness of control environment in an organization, we also at the same time talk about risk, because that's why we call it a risk-based internal audit. But if you look at it, control and risk are two sides of the same coin. So wherever there is a risk, that is a what can go wrong, you have a mitigation plan in place, which we call it as a control. And if you further deep dive into this, the what can go wrong or the risk is a part and parcel of our daily life, personal as well as professional. While we do internal audit, we park it as a professional thing, but actually in our personal lives also, this is there. And there are learnings that are common in both. So in a nutshell, whatever karma we do, whatever actions we do, the karma, personal and professional, it may have a positive implication. It may also have a negative implication based on what we call as the what can go wrong or the risk. In professional, when we do an internal audit, we call it as a what can go wrong or a risk. But in personal sphere, we will say something which we did not want to do has got done, which is a negative thing. Ever you wondered why fraud risk fructify? So does a fraud risk fructify without personal advantage in any organization? The answer is no. That means there is some synergy between personal and professional. So we are talking about internal audit. We are talking about professional as well as personal, the karmas to do with that. And when we talk about the karmas and actions, I think then we can definitely fall back in history. We can fall back actually not only in history, but go way beyond in our epics, the Ramayana, the Mahabharata and all that. So definitely there is a need to look at overlaps between personal and professional behavior and actions, which is called karmas. And believe me, there are tremendous learnings we can gather from the epics, the shastras on this. And in this session, we will explore, like we said, the linkages and analogies between internal audit, mythologies, and past history. And from an internal audit perspective, there are multiple lessons which we can revisit from history and mythology, both as an analogy and corollary, such as, I'm sure this is going to be picked up, but again, I'm taking a clue which in my initial discussion with Siva, we gathered that there is this Lakshman Rekha. Perhaps it can become a case study on how a risk assessment in an organization works. Yeah. And sometimes if there is a mitigation plan which is failing, and how many other stories also that can come up on the way. So definitely, I know as we progress in this particular session, Siva is going to enlighten all of us on this extremely enticing topic And before we close, we are going to take a summary of all that and won't steal too much of time. I know there is a very nice presentation pack that has been prepared by Mr. Sivaraman Subramaniam. Popularly, we call him Siva. So welcome, Siva sir. Over to you for enlightening us, all the participants, on this enriching topic.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sid. I hope I'm audible. And thanks, Deepak sir, Nikhil sir, for being here. Although now you're putting me in a bit of awe. And thanks, Amit. Thanks for organizing this. Let me just share my screen, and I hope Sid, my screen is visible. So,
it's visible.
Guys, before I start, couple of things. Deepak sir mentioned about my professional career and about me professionally. Sure, that's available on LinkedIn also. I would also want to give a very quick introduction about myself personally. My name is Shivram Subramaniam. Everyone knows I was born in South in Trivandrum. I'm a hybrid between Kerala and Tamil Nadu. I was born in Trivandrum. I was brought up in Delhi. I started my career in Calcutta. I got married in Bombay, and I'm now settled in Bangalore. Of course, I've had few years of stint in Ahmedabad and also. I'm a chartered accountant, and like a typical chartered accountant, I have 3 ladies in my life: my daughter, my wife, my mother-in-law. My wife's name is Lakshmi, which means cash in a lot of parlance. Daughter's name is Shreya, which means credit. And mother-in-law's name is Tankam, which South Indians would figure out is actually gold, which is an asset. So that's about myself. So you should know your customer, know your presenter. That's about me personally. Having said that, a lot was spoken and created for as a background for this thing. I, however, am doing a small deviation, maybe small, maybe slightly more than small. Is that when I'm going to talk about mythology or myths, I'm not going to be giving you solutions and look at how easily or how through a divine way you can figure out frauds or something happening in your organization. That's not the case. And I'm also taking cues from history, in fact even very recent history, Bollywood for that matter. And my presentation is going to be how we can learn and develop some of the attributes and strategies which internal audit can take place, can use per se. Okay, so I'll start my presentation. Thank you all, everyone, for joining on a Monday evening. Let me start with just telling you a small story about internal auditor. I had these 2 guys, and this guy is asking the other guy, "What's your plan for me?" And this other guy says, "I'm an internal auditor." He starts crying. That's what happens. Physical verification, reports to be submitted, some kind of a physical presence required at some particular point of time. So that's what perhaps is one of the fallacies of probably being an internal auditor. Having said that, let's look at this. What's this chart talk about? Senior management, finance, audit committees, business, control owners. Okay, if I ask questions, wherever possible, you can just plot it in the chat box, one word. So what do you think all these guys are? If you can quickly put it on the chat box, I'm sure Sid or Akash or Chanchal from the IT team can just correlate if anyone has probably typed it out. So what are these guys? Sid, any answers coming in, or can I move? So these are our customers and stakeholders. And what does this mean? From a mythology, which character does it reflect, and does it embed? For me, it's like an Abhimanyu who is fighting battles at so many fronts. My senior management wants something. My audit committee may perhaps want something different. Maybe they all want the same thing, but they want it in a different manner. They want it something till their level only, something they want it to be presented in a different manner. And that's what this poor guy Abhimanyu, when he was fighting so many multiple warriors across this thing. I think the only positive is that today internal audit is not some of those defeated Abhimanyu, but we are surely emerging out as victorious Abhimanyus. But the fact remains that we are fighting so many battles, so sometimes it does lead us to feel, what is it that we are doing? Now let me just take a step back and put across a few more characters and just try. I would request all of you guys to think which functions could those guys be. Before that, let me just put across, there are a few characters here from the mythology. Again, if you guys can probably just figure out who they are, want to put something on the chat box. And I leave it, Sid, if the chat box leads to, loss of screen, then it's okay. We'll continue with this as such. So, I'm sure you guys would have figured most of them or some of them. So this is Dronacharya, who was the teacher of Pandavas. This is Hanuman, this is Jaya Vijaya, who were actually the gatekeepers for Lord Vishnu, and this is Barbie. Now, what's unique about these people? Dronacharya, what did he do? He was teaching, imparting knowledge, as well as he was assessing the Pandavas on how efficient they are or how effective they are. Or not just the Pandavas, even the Kauravas and all his students. Hanumanji was the go-to man for Lord Rama. Anything required, Sita ji is missing. Hanumanji, can you find out? Lakshmanji is down, unconscious. Hanuman, can you figure out where Sanjeevani is? Go and get it for us. Jaya Vijaya, I don't know how many people would be aware of it. They were the trusted gatekeepers of Lord, and in this photograph also, if you can see, these are the two gatekeepers, and they actually stopped Brahma's sons to come inside and meet Lord Vishnu, and these guys cursed them that you will have to be away from Vishnu and you'll have to spend 7 generations or 7 janams and 7 births in the earthly realm. And Lord Vishnu was so attached to them, so much trusted these two guys were, that Lord Vishnu gave them an option. Listen, instead of spending 7 births, you go as evil and spend 3 births, get killed by me, and you can come back. So that was a kind of love and affection actually he had. He didn't want to keep them too away from himself. And Barbik is actually grandson of Bhim. He's actually son of Ghatotkacha, and he did not. He chose not to take part in the Mahabharata war. Instead, what he did was he cut off his head, placed it on a mountain hilltop, and he watched the entire Mahabharata. And post the end of Mahabharata, all the people who were left, they went to him and said, who was the most fearful warrior? Who was the most effective warrior? Can you tell us, Barbik? And Barbik said, listen, I didn't see any of these. All I saw was Draupadi in Lord Kali's form and Lord Krishna's Sudarshan Chakra, which was just creating havoc everywhere. So what does all this tell? Which functions in our organization today kind of represent all this? And that's where we need to be proud of being internal auditors, because these are all what internal auditors also do. We sometimes train our business guys, but we definitely assess them for sure. We become the go-to people for the business. There is a fraud somewhere, there's a whistleblower, can internal audit look into it? Please go. We are one of the most trusted gatekeepers. We are supposed to be the 3rd line of defense, or the 3rd model now, as it is called. So we anything finally should not miss us. And of course, we also give the completely outside-in perspective by not being in thick of things, but at the same time giving the people a very, very clear perspective. So that's what internal audit is all about. And it took out this place, Lakshman Rekha. Now this is a very classic case, and this is where I start my presentation on trying to talk about analogies and corollaries here. Lakshman Rekha is actually a very classic case of perhaps the most ancient risk assessment happening, whereby Lakshman believed the risk of Sita being kidnapped or any harm falling on Sita, and therefore he drew a control which was the Lakshman Rekha. But what happened? Did it actually mitigate the risk? No. End of the day, Sita ji was kidnapped. And why did that happen? Because the control which was defined only stopped people from outside to come inside this circle. It never stopped a person from inside to go out. And this is where sometimes we as auditors also face a challenge when we talk about some controls, when we talk about certain things to be in place. The management normally comes and says, no, we need to empower our people. This was the case. We need to empower Sita ji. She may have to go out or whatever it is. But if the risk is so serious, which is a life-threatening risk, or something where Sita ji should not have been kidnapped or whatever it is, I think we need to put our foot down and be very clear on what those controls need to be, and clearly call out those risks and those impacts. Having said that, now the way I spoke about, I'm going to try and talk about few attributes that internal auditors should possess and how we can learn about this from our mythology. Let me start with this story. Most of you guys looking at this photograph may be able to understand, but the story goes like this. This is Shibi Maharaj ji sitting on this side of the of the weighing scale, and there is this small kabutar, pigeon, dove which is standing here. Now the story goes like this: that this pigeon comes to meet Shivi Maharaj and says, "Can you please help me? There is this big eagle which is going to eat me. Can you please help me?" So Shivi Maharaj tells the eagle, why please leave this dove, this pigeon, because it has come in my protection. ये मेरी शरण में आया है, इसको छोड़ दो. The eagle says, "What, boss? I also have to eat. If I don't eat, how do I survive? If I don't eat, I will die. So what do I do?" So Shivi Maharaj does what? Shivi Maharaj says, "Okay, I will give you a pound of flesh from my side, equal to the weight of the pigeon, and you eat that." And he starts cutting a part of his flesh, and whatever said and done, it so happens that he's never able to match the weight of the pigeon. And he's almost cut. If you look at this photograph, his hands are cut, legs are cut, everything, and he's virtually there. And then suddenly this pigeon and the eagle change into gods, and then they say, "We're extremely happy with your sense of sacrifice, your sense of well-being for others, concern for others, and we grant you so many boons," and so on and so forth. That's how the story goes. But I want to stop, pause, and actually talk a different corollary. Assuming these were not gods, assuming this was not a test but a genuine case, okay, fine, maybe it would not have been a case where Shivi Maharaj has to cut everything of his body, but he would have still given something, and tomorrow there would be another eagle and another dove. So the point is that as a king we should be extra cautious and not try and rationalize. Here the king tried to rationalize, saying, "Okay, let me save this dove, it's a poor weak character." But end of the day, if you try to rationalize, both the king and the kingdom are going to suffer. So this can be a leadership lesson. It can be an internal auditor's attribute, that I should not be rationalizing when I'm looking at particular events and looking at particular transactions. I should never try and rationalize, okay, maybe he was busy. Oh, I know he was unwell that time. I know this is what happened with him. I understand there was a strike that day, or whatever it is. Don't rationalize. Be empathetic, but don't be too sympathetic. So that's the first attribute that we should develop as internal auditors. Let me move ahead. Now here is a story. This is more from Jataka Tales. There was this village for a very long time. There was no rain. It was complete drought for almost years and years and years. And they tried everything, and finally the entire village agreed or thought that let's call some learned sages and get some yajna done, so that we are able to please the Lord Varuna and we are able to get some good rains this time. And they do this, arrange this thing, and it's a big celebration. Obviously, because of drought and all, people have not even had 2 square meals in a day, and this was a big function. So obviously there's going to be a lot of feasts and festivities. So the entire village came and attended this. And there was this one small boy who went, and this was happening outside the village, few couple of 100 meters away from the village. There was only one small boy who actually went with an umbrella. Now, if I would again want to pause and ask all of you guys who are there, close your eyes, and if this is your story, put it in the chat box if it works. Else, I am presuming a large part of you guys would be saying that you would want to be the boy. And if that is the answer, gentlemen, I'm very happy to announce that we have been given that opportunity, because as internal auditors, we'll always face skepticism, and we should always demonstrate the faith. If we believe that this is how the organization should have their controls, whatever amount of skepticism we find from the lower rung, "Arey yaar, tum to aake aise hi bolte rehte ho," if we believe that, we should avoid the skepticism and focus and have that faith in ourselves. We need to demonstrate that faith. That's the most important thing. Okay, so let me move ahead. Okay, this is another story. This is actually Drupad and Dronacharya. Drupad is the king who's sitting in the couch, and Dronacharya is walking away from this photograph, if you can figure out. The story goes that Drupad and Dronacharya were friends, and then Dronacharya was very poor. Drupad was obviously the king. Dronacharya could not even feed his son Ashwathama with milk, so his wife actually put some water into flour and mixed it, and it was a white liquid which he gave it to her son, and He was so happy assuming that it is milk, so it actually troubled Dronacharya a lot. So he went to Drupad and said, I'm your friend, do you remember me, and all that stuff. And he says, can you give me something so that I'm also able to live with a certain amount of money with me. And Drupad actually discards him and he says, nothing doing, you please go out and I'll not help you. And Dronacharya actually walks away in anger, and there's a lot of stories saying we should not be arrogant, and I completely agree, we should not be arrogant the way Drupad is also appearing in it. But again, drawing analogies and drawing corollaries is another aspect. If one reads Mahabharata in detail, actually what Drupad says is that Dronacharya, you are a Brahmin. You perform a ritual and ask for dakshina, or you ask for dan. Don't demand anything. And that is what the rules at that point of time said. And therefore, as internal auditors also, we need to always respect the rules. So while in this case, you need not be arrogant about anything, but it is very important that we respect the rules of the organization and we follow our own work attributes around that. Let me move ahead. Wow. Okay. So this is a complete change from Mahabharata and ancient. We've come to Shah Rukh Khan and Chak De. Okay. So the reason why I've picked up this and completely a shift, and it's a very important attribute that an internal auditor should have, is that I'm sure most of you would have watched this movie. There is a time in this movie, in the middle of the movie, when the entire team actually comes and tells Shah Rukh Khan that, we don't want you as a coach. And the point is that, there was this girl who was the leader, captain, goalkeeper, most liked by everyone. The entire team didn't rally behind her. The entire team probably rallied behind this lady who was like, a spoiled brat there or whatever it is. Why did that happen? Was she an influencer? Was that the only reason? Was she a bully? I think more than that, just like internal auditor has to be, it's very important to be trustworthy and not just liked. It's very important as internal auditors to be trustworthy and not just the most liked guy. Most liked guy important, but our role, it's more important to be a trustworthy person, and that's when people would speak to you. People would reach out to you, and you would be able to help them. So that's one more attribute about this thing. Let me move ahead and talk about one more story here. Now, this is the photographs of the 7th and the 8th Guru in the cities. Guru Harrai was the 7th Guru, Guru Harkishan Ji was the 8th Guru. Now, if you look at it, I think Guru Harrai was also the youngest Guru amongst the young. But we had one more guy, one more person, Guru Ram Rai. He was the firstborn of the eldest son of Guru Harrai. Now, Guru Ram Rai was piped to be the 8th Guru. Now, there was a time when Aurangzeb was the Mughal ruler kingdom. He was under a little bit of suspicion that is this Sikhism trying to impact and is it anti-Muslim or whatever it is, and he calls Guru Harrai for a certain amount of discussion and debate on what does Sikhism is all about, trying to figure out is it anti-Muslim in any way at that point of time. Now, Guru Ram Rai was anyway well trained, and so they believed that he's the one who should go. And Guru Ram Rai went and met Aurangzeb, and they had a very long discussion. It went on for days and days and days. And eventually, there was one particular aspect, one particular verse in the Granth Sahib of that time, which talked about a phrase which said, from the graveyard of Musalman. Okay, and somewhere the conclusion was not very, very positive towards the Muslim thing in that. And Aurangzeb caught on to it and said, why are you saying this? Isn't it somewhere, not talking great about, are you trying to undermine Islam in any manner whatsoever? And Guru Ram Rai was also slightly, stuck up on that. And he actually went ahead and said, no, it doesn't mean from the graveyard of Musalman, it means graveyard of Beiman. And so the matter was kind of addressed. But Guru Har Rai kind of believed that one should not deviate from the scriptures, and therefore Guru Ram Rai was ostracized, and Guru Har Kishan Ji was made the 8th Guru. Guru Ram Rai, it's a separate story. He started his own Dera, and Dera Doon is named from that particular thing. But the point we are wanting to say is, as internal auditor, should not leave any ambiguity. If we believe a process is like that, we are finding a very tough process owner who is challenging you. We can't leave anything to ambiguity. We can't at that point of time to address a particular discussion, say, okay, no, okay, here you could possibly do like that, because that's going to defeat the entire purpose. If you have a problem with the process, you have a problem with the SOP, you have a problem with the rule, probably go ahead and try and change it if so be it. But when it is a rule which has been signed off by the organization, one needs to be, not just trying to find out alternate ways if you're having a very tough customer in front of you. So that's another important attribute that as an internal auditor one should be having. And that's I'm going back to history now. This gentleman photograph is Karoli. Now he is a Hungarian. He was a Hungarian shooter. Okay. He was in 1936. He was piped to be win the Olympic gold medal, but he was not allowed because he was a sergeant at that point of time. And in 1936 in Hungary, only commissioned officers were allowed to take part. So he was a sergeant. He was not a commissioned officer, so he could not take part. 1938 or 1937, there was some reforms happening in Hungary, and thereafter in 1940 he was allowed to take part, but 1940 Olympics got cancelled because of World War II. And 1944 again the Olympics got cancelled. 1948 this guy won a gold medal. Now when you look at this picture, I think you can see the grit and determination this guy had. And imagine 14 years, and he must have practiced from long time back. That's the kind of time he waited. And that's not just one thing about this gentleman. There's one more important aspect about this gentleman. In 1938, he actually injured his shooting arm. In a grenade explosion, he lost his right arm, which was his shooting arm. From 1938, he actually trained himself to shoot with his left arm. And in 1939, there was a national championship which he won with his left arm. Even if in the photograph, if you look at it, he's shooting with his left arm. And he was piped. So imagine this guy loses his right arm. He trains himself with left arm. For 8 years, he's unable to take part and showcase his skill sets because of a lot of other political reasons and war in the entire earth, in the world. And that's what, as internal auditors, we need to develop perseverance in training as an attribute. There is no way, we're not going to be in limelight the entire year, not like the sales people. We're not going to be in limelight like the supply chain. We're not going to be definitely in limelight like marketing. But there will be a time which will come when people will recognize, as long as you continue to show the perseverance and train yourself, upskill yourself. And that's another important aspect that as an internal auditor, we all should focus and work towards. Okay. Now, let me tell you another story.
Shiva sir, there is a question. Yeah. It's a very interesting question, so I'm just trying to barge in and ask that.
Sure.
So there's a question by Kapil. He says, who's the god of internal audit? As per the Shastras and all, not the god as per the people that we have. Interesting question.
Okay, very interesting question. And one doesn't really have an answer to that. But what is internal?
Before Shiva sir, you conclude with my knowledge of astrology, which is Jyotish Acharya, I would like to add to this answer which you will give.
Yeah, sure, please do that.
Audit is signified by Venus, Shukra. So as per the, if you go back, not in history, but in epics and in mythology, like we are talking about, then it will be Lord Shukra, which will basically signify. So answers are there, all answers are there, but I'm sure you will also bring a perspective to this. Since this was a very interesting question, then I thought, let me add this perspective. But
No,
for all
certainly.
purposes,
Yeah.
Lord Shukra can be taken as the god.
Agree with you, Sid. And honestly speaking, I may not have an answer immediately, but certainly a question which I will think upon, ponder upon, and definitely come back to all the participants. And thank you so much for this question. Yeah. Should we continue?
Sure, Srivastava. Yeah, these type of
Thank you so much. Yeah, very much. Thanks a ton, Kapil. I'll definitely come back to you on this. Okay, so this is a story again back to history, more recent history and not an ancient history. So this guy Kennedy, okay, I'm sure everyone knows Kennedy, and he went and visited NASA once. And while he was there in his usual effervescent, bubbly style, he's walking down the corridor and he sees a janitor there, and he asks him, "Hey, what do you do here?" You know, in his usual style. And this janitor replies, "I'm helping put a man on the." That's the attitude. Let me give you a very classic example about this. While working for an FMCG company, which was in the process of manufacturing some kind of namkeens, we had various SKUs and stuff like that, and the company was actually struggling with an abnormal pattern of sales return. So there were a lot of products which would go, then the distributor would say, "I never asked for Nibu masala, I asked for a mirchi masala, but you guys have sent me Nibu masala." So there's a lot of sales return. And the challenge was that this company was working on a cash and carry, so it wasn't also that the sales guys were dumping the goods there. There was money which was coming in, it was being built, but what was being built was Nibu masala, but what was reaching there was mirchi masala or whatever. And there was this big challenge, and we actually were not. I mean, while we were internal auditors, we were actually doing a lot of CFA checklist audits and stuff like that. And we also, when we were interacting with the business guys, and this was one thing which was happening, and we did a lot of because as a CFA audit, we would get access to a lot of reports. So we did a lot of report analysis, data analysis, figured out what is where is the maximum concentration, what type of trucks, and is there a correlation between sales return and type of trucks? Is there a correlation between location and sales return? Is there a correlation between customer and a sales return? Is there? So we couldn't find anything except one common trend that was happening was that most of the sales return were happening for dispatches made between 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. in the evening. And in our CFA audit checklist, there was this probably 189th line item which said what percentage of bulbs are CFL bulbs and not yellow bulbs, because that was a mandate which was there. And this was something which was probably something, and we were normally finding that this ratio was less. The CFA guy was trying to probably cut some corners. And then we realized that the company had changed its secondary packaging. In the carton that would go earlier, there was a separate carton for Nibu Mirch Masala and the Nibu Masala, but they actually, to save and optimize, they made common ones, and they would put a tick. They would print all the type of flavors and they would put a tick on which flavor needs to be picked up. And we realized that because of these yellow lights in the evening, the loaders were actually unable to differentiate and they would pick a wrong thing. So what I wanted to say is that it didn't require a management consulting mandate to come, but as internal auditors also, we can add so much value. So the message here I wanted to send was never undervalue or underestimate your effort. Never undervalue your words. Never undervalue your work. So that's a very important attribute that as internal auditors we should be having. Now, a few strategies that we could learn and adopt from mythology and stuff like that. This would have preferred a slightly more interactive session on this slide, but let me just try and figure it out through what is this?
Srivastava,
Yeah.
the excitement is on. There is. I think the excitement is going to the level of talking about lot of various internal audit is one lot of and there is a deliberation which I see someone has commented on that. I think so I'll just add to that again, because I think we have a lot of people who are who are to a large extent enlightened. Let me say that way.
Okay. Thank you so much. I'm as long as they more than enlightenment, they can pick something.
Let me check the name of the person. Just once again.
Sure.
Manas. So he has said that Saturn is also a significator of audit. So I will add to that. See, basically what happens is when you talk about law, it is Jupiter. And when you talk about Saturn and Jupiter, it becomes tax. It is the lord of tax. So Saturn influence will always be there. And I'm just saying it because Manas has actually commented over there. Saturn influence will always be there, most important in any facet. But at the same time, the karka or the significator of the various streams which we talk about as chartered accountant has to be deciphered in a very minute way. So for instance, audit, karka will become Venus, Saturn will be there because it's public at large, law will be Jupiter, and Saturn again because it's public at large, and tax is again a part of legal line. So Saturn, Jupiter, a pure law will be with Mangal. So why I'm elaborating on all these things, because there is some comment that has come, and I thought that it is better to make a conclusion in an apt form rather than leaving it half. So
Absolutely.
if somebody has to be a criminal lawyer, for instance, then the role of Mars will come, Mangal. So that's how one looks at it. But particularly if you see and you go into the fishbone analysis, like we say in audit, the fishbone analysis of what are the various streams, then the significators will be very, you can actually pick and choose from various planets. Combinations will also lead to something. So there is an interesting discussion which is parallelly going on in the chat box. So I thought I will just add to it, Siva sir.
No, that's really heartening to me. Okay. So this is a scenario.
Deepak sir has a question: who is the Lord of Advisory Services? Extremely interesting question.
Okay. So maybe that's a good and
here you cannot leave the role of Saturn. I will agree. Because advisory will mean a lot of things coming in, not only internal audit. It is actually to do with the complete business advisory piece, where Saturn, Jupiter. So the influence is of conjunction of planets over here. Deepak sir, it will be an influence of conjunction of planets over there. I won't take too much time, Siva sir. We'll come back to this.
No. Please. I think, I'm also not having many more slides to go, so it will be good to have certain amount of discussion and debates. So let me come back.
Who is the Lord of Ethics? Values in a company. Very interesting question, sir. Again, very interesting question. These are things from where you pick up profession. So I will actually urge the participants over here to look at the internal audit today magazine October edition, which has recently come, and there is this article which in fact I have only contributed on professional excellence through astrology. So please go through that, but I have restricted it only to audit. I have not gone beyond that. But if you talk about again ethics and all, Saturn will play a big role over there, but in conjunction with Mercury, because it is intellect, it is the mind. The ethical behavior, integrity level is here in the mind. So anyway, interesting chats going on, sir.
Absolutely. So here, when you see the screen, this is basically trying to depict Swargalok, and who's the ruler of Swarg? It's Lord Indra. Now, before I probably start this slide, I must say that just like the Christians and Jews have a promised land, Jerusalem, in Hindu mythology, we have ideally three promised lands. The first is the Swargalok, which is depicted here. We have the Mount Kailasha, which is the promised land, and we also have Vaikuntha. Now, what's the theme behind this? If you look at it, as a Swargalok, if you look at who rules Swargalok, Lord Indra. How do you see Lord Indra? He's on an elephant, What happens in Swarglok? Swarglok, if you go, you see that people are happy, people are enjoying, dancing, there's wine, woman, and there's this overall happiness in Swargalok. But Swargalok is constantly under attack from the Asuras. So you will always find an Indra sitting on an elephant, Airavat with his Vajra in his hand, always on fight. So there's always this underlying tension in Swargalok. Exactly opposite is Mount Kailash. Mount Kailash is people are content. Now look at this photograph. You have goddesses lion and you have Lord Shiva's bull. Both of them coexisting in absolute peace. You don't have Lord Kartikeya here, but Lord Kartikeya's Vahan is peacock. What does peacock eat? Peacock eats snakes, which is there on Lord Shiva's neck. What does snake eat? Mouse, which is Lord Ganesha's Vahan. All of them peaceful coexistence. Absolutely, living without any content. And then you have Vaikunt, where the Lord is fairly engaging. He ensures the well-being of all. They are all fairly engaged and very simple. Why am I speaking about this? I would again like to probably just keep this in mind and come to our normal life. You go for an audit, let's say to a plant or a location or stores where there is sales. The plant manager, the stores manager, they're always under pressure. Yahan se customer chilla raha hai, there is sales pressure, there is this delivery pressure, there is this supply chain interruption somewhere, there is a manufacturing production breakdown somewhere, constant pressure. The excise guy who has come out there, and nowadays it's a GST guy who has come out there, and whole lot of things. That's like a Swarglok, you're discussing your report and it's constantly posed. And then you have this Mount Kailash, which is normally the business CEOs and all. As long as audit is concerned, he's coming, listening to you very peacefully. Issues are okay. He knows that the production guy is also doing his job, sales guy is also doing sales. He's fairly content and is trying to balance both of you. And then usually you have the board, which is fairly engaging, asks what's happening, how do you improve, what are the core areas, and very engaging. So the point is that you will have completely different scenarios, completely different kind of ecosystem in which your own process owners will be working upon and your own stakeholders will be operating out of. So it's very important to have completely different strategies. You can't look at the same set of ways and means, even if you have that much of time or whatever it is, and what kind of messaging you need to do at a production head, or a sales head, to a CEO or a function head, and then finally to the board. So you need to have completely different strategies in different scenarios, and that's very important strategy or a cue that one needs to take from our mythology. Okay, now again, this is a Mahabharata character. Anyone would want to guess who it is? Probably wait now that the chat box is active. Said if there are someone who was wanting to guess this character.
Shikhandi.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is Shikhandi, very true. But what did Shikhandi do? Shikhandi actually rode with Arjuna and fought with Lord Bhishma, not Lord Bhishma. And she was instrumental, he was instrumental in the death of Bhishma. Now, what is it that internal auditors need to learn from this particular aspect? Now, let's just step back and think what did happen. Shikhandi was reborn with an objective to be the cause of death of Bhishma. So she had an agenda. Bhishma put down his arms in front of Shikhandi. So as internal auditors, if you are Arjun and you are going to fight your toughest process owner, get your Shikhandi. You're going to a particular business head, you believe the CFO, he will not refute the CFO. CFO also may have an agenda to set. Get the CFO, get the commercial guys, get the legal guy. And Shikhandi need not be a person. Shikhandi can be your data analytics, your facts also. But you need to go with things which will basically make the other guy drop his weapons, because he will not and he cannot fight under any code with that person. So it's very important that when you are going, you have an issue, do you have your Shikhandi when you're going and meeting very tough process owners? That's a very important thing, and that's one thing. Anytime you go for your next meeting and this guy is a very tough customer, can you figure out a Shikhandi whom you can take with you and maybe emerge successful out of that meeting. Okay, this is coming back from a very, very recent movie. I'm sure you've all seen this movie, you've heard this, and obviously the Marathi also has a thing. This is a very quick thing. Learn from Simba only to give your process owners something new. You will have to keep them engaged. You will have to share something new. And there's one more strategy which will come later, and I'll probably build it up from there. But you need to, you can't repeat yourself, even if it is to be packaged in a different way, add a few more flavor. It is very important that your stakeholders get to hear something from you. I understand that we are doing the same factory audit for the last 4 years. How do I come with something new? Think about it. We may have missed out 1 or 2 areas, and it need not necessarily be something which, if it is going to the production head, need to go all up to the board audit committee, or up to the audit committee, or up to the managing director. It can be at various levels, but try and keep them engaged. Share something new with them. Okay, this is going to be more or less closer to the thing. I'm sure all of you guys have figured out this is Lord Sudama and Krishna, and and Sudama comes and meets Krishna, and he is afraid. He's very hesitant to say, I need your help or anything of that sort. Instead, he offers him fistful of, he has bought some poha and good for Lord Krishna, and Lord Krishna picks up one mouthful, eats, and then the second mouthful and eats, and then goddess stops him and sings, 2 mouthful are good enough for this birth and the next birth. What it basically mean ki bhai aapne itna kha liya, isi mein you are supposed to take care of him for the next 2 birth. Now, what do we as internal auditors need to learn from this is, say, for the future, you have 5-6 brilliant points, and if they are not fraud risks or an ethical issue or whatever, don't rush everything in this board audit committee itself, in this audit committee itself. Keep something for the next time, because you don't know how the next quarter will be. So if you've got 5-6 very good points, because the marginal increment of your appreciation after you've shared 4-5 good points, the 6th and 7th points are not going to be as impactful if you kind of show it to them next time, because unfortunately, or you are as good as your last inning. That's what internal audit. No one will say 4 quarters back you came out with a brilliant point. If this quarter you've not got, people are going to say, okay, theek hai, and stuff like that. They'll not really be very appreciative. So always remember, save something for the future, and keep a couple of things up your sleeve. Not that don't discuss it or whatever it is. Don't get into a rush and try and plug everything into your current quarter's audit. So that was it. Now I'm coming back to, this is toggling between mythology and history. This is World War II time again. During World War II, Britain almost had only 1/10 or 1/8 of the number of fighter planes that Germany had. So it was very important that they take extreme care. They don't lose much of their fighter aircrafts, and they had to be extremely frugal, extremely cautious about their fighter aircraft. So every time an aircraft would come back, these engineers and these mechanics would look at it threadbare and see where all it was shot, and how do I make those things more strong, and so that it is less susceptible next time. And one engineer said, hey guys, you're making a big mistake. Don't look at the planes which have come back, because they've been able to come back. Look at the planes which would have not come back. So look at the areas where this guy is not shot. Perhaps those are the weak links, rather than looking at areas where it has been shot and try to be, make those items more, or those part more stronger. So what's very important is, as internal auditors also, is to look what is not there. I mean, again, I can give an example from my own personal experience, is that, we're doing a payroll audit, and we typically do everything like so many people, reconciliation, last month to this month, any new additions, any change in basic, is there an increment letter, and all those things. But we actually went ahead and looked at what are the things that an employee will do, and which are the employees who are not doing all that. That is what we were trying to look at, what is not there. So how many employees never took a leave? How many employees never got a promotion? How many employees never made a claim? How many employees never had any of these medical reimbursements, LTAs and all, and everything is because If there is an employee, he would typically do all this. And if someone is not doing it, is he really there? And that's the way we need to also start looking at as an auditor, to look what is not there. And so this is more or less around, I guess I've kind of a few closing remarks that I would like to make, and then we can probably take on question and answers. Is imagine this river, and you have the king on this side and you have a sage on this side, and both of them have to cross the sides, and this is a very narrow bridge which is there, and the king is coming from this side, sage is coming from that side, and both of them reach at a point, and one has to give way. So the king goes before the sage and says, "Oh, Holy One, I'm very happy to welcome you to my kingdom. I just have to manage some affairs, take care of some affairs of the kingdom on the other side of this thing. May I please request you to make way so that my entourage can pass?" And the sage politely says, "O king, I'm very happy to be in your kingdom. I hear that you support all these learned people with your charity. And I also hear that you promote learnings and knowledge sharing. And I'm very happy to be in your city for some time. And I have this particular ritual to attend or function to attend. May I request you to please make way so that I can cross?" The king says, "Learned one, please try and understand. I have to go there. I am the king. Please make way." This guy says, "No, king. I am a sage. I am more learned than you are. If I don't do these good deeds, your kingdom will suffer. Make way for me." And slowly, both of them starting to lose their patience. King obviously loses his patience faster. Sage is still learned, and probably he's also a little bit more agitated. And this thing goes on, and suddenly the sage gets really very angry, and he says, "I curse you. You will become a demon." And this king suddenly turns into a very ugly looking demon, all his pomp and glory, everything fallen off. And what does the king do when he becomes a demon? He eats the sage. Now, come back to your normal life in today's world, and imagine the sage is an internal auditor and the king is a business head or a process owner. What happens? If you keep antagonizing him, yes, he may probably lose out favor from management or whatever, but B becomes a demon who would probably go out all to harm you. So it's very important as an internal auditor to always keep in mind whether it is important to win or to be right. And that's a very important thing. Every time we get into these discussions, these arguments, these stalemates, please try and keep this in mind. And as auditors, and this is my last slide, as auditors, we are told to take risks, but by default we are focusing more around risk and control. So we tend to become risk averse. And yes, we need to be extra cautious, no doubt about it. But don't be an extra cautious like this, where a guy is looking at solar eclipse also through binoculars at home on TV. It's very important that we don't really get into that extreme, and in the need to be, in the zeal to be overprotective about. It is important to be protective, but I think an element of risk, an element of business knowledge and appreciation needs to be. I'm through set. Happy to take any questions if there are.
So, Siva, we've got some interesting questions, and I'll go in the back order, I believe. Yeah. So, one is that when you can't win, but you are right, what should be the ideal way out from these type of situations as an internal auditor?
If you are right and you can't win, I think the first important thing is that perhaps we need to build our credibility. It is, if you are right, okay, and you are still not able to win, that is because the word of mouth is, or his word is more taken, having a higher weightage than mine. which basically means you need to be building your credibility. And I've faced these things in my life. Sometimes you need to, at that point of time, let it go and then go back, work on your facts, work on your skills, work on your credibility, and there will be a time when you can reinforce your point again. Sometimes it happens that he's accepted it, he's not accepted it on your face, he does all those things subsequently, and there are ways that you can subsequently present. So if you are right and you can't win, then it is a time, it is an urgent need to further enhance your credibility.
Right, Siva sir, I think you are falling back on your slide on Sikandi, where you said the facts need to be revisited, the data analytics need to be done. Perhaps that could be the reason. And also on perseverance, if I take a clue from your slides. So aptly replied on that. Let me just see. In case there are multiple, I'm just rephrasing the question. So in case there are multiple findings and all of them seem to be critical and all, should all the findings be tabled in the forthcoming audit committee, or we should prioritize amongst all the critical and then table some of them and perhaps table at a subsequent stage some of the critical findings, or perhaps not?
So two ways to look at it. Okay, when I said save for future, obviously, you've got 5 audits and all 5 of them have critical. Take 3, 4, or take 3. Keep the 2 audits separately. But within procurement, if you have 5 issues, doesn't make any sense in telling 3 now and telling 2 later. How do you get even that report into the audit committee agenda next time? So that's not the way one would probably do. What is clearly demarketable, and when you say critical, if it leads to a humongous cost savings or whatever it is at an immediate level, and if the action plan is also supposed to be very, very immediate, then probably don't wait. But if there are significant process improvements and things like that which will also be appreciated, I think you can always, I'm not saying don't share the report with the business, do that. Okay, today internal auditor, because of time, because of pressures, and because of a cycle, also issuance of report and audit committee are too synonymous, too synchronized. I think we should get away out of that. There is no problem, because tomorrow no one should question that you never raised it. So maybe your audit committee is over today, 3 days down the line, keep your report ready, issue it. And 2 months, 2.5 months down the line, when there is an audit committee, discuss that point, because you're free to discuss any point issued post the last audit committee till the next audit committee. So that's the strategy one should adopt.
So thanks Siva for that. In the meantime, I'm just requesting the participants, in case they want to post more questions, they can do that, because we have time and we'll pick as many as we can. There's another interesting question. So this may come out as a tongue twister as well. What is the thin line between audit and assessment? Assessor checking the data, interacting with assessee and share report, and auditor also checks data, interacts with auditee and shares report.
So my only question is, assessment, is it linked to tax or something, or is it assessment as in a academic assessment happening? Or?
I think you have answered it in the process, because when we talk about audit, assessment is a bit different. So I'm not sure, the question is not conclusive to that extent. Maybe Kinsuk is the one, so Kinsuk can further elaborate on this question, but we can come back on this. But looks to be that whether it's a tax audit and a tax assessment, then this will become more apt to answer. Yeah.
Yeah. So if it is, I mean, if we assume it's a tax audit and a tax assessment and internal audit and assessment,
yeah,
I think first of all, agencies are completely different and the objectives are completely different. Tax audit is predominantly more aligned towards the compliance with a certain set of external rules. Internal audit is more aligned towards primarily, yes, compliance with an internal set of rules, plus also whether those internal set of rules and unstated practices and policies are also efficient and effective enough. End of the day, meeting by companies and the functions and the department or that processes objectives. So to that extent, there will always be a difference between the two in terms of the end objectives itself.
Very well explained, sir. The another question is by Amrita. internal auditors are required to be accommodative, but in case an issue gets pointed out by RBI or state auditor, maybe perhaps any of the regulators, the same set of people may question your ability. So what are your views?
You know, this is an occupational hazard. Let's face it. We can't unearth everything. Okay, and obviously, it's when I say, you know, internal audit is supposedly the third line of defense and perhaps the first leg to roll when something so-called this thing happens. I think the point is we have IIA standards, we have certain defined professional judgment. If one is able to demonstrate adherence to that, okay, and you have done adequate risk assessment, and you've not just done some, because you know your answers like I picked up random sample, okay, and you know I picked up 25 invoices and all, and in today's age, if you are not able to demonstrate that you have tried your own best way of looking at analytics or whatever it is, then it will obviously be a cause of concern for anyone. If RBI has picked up a particular or any other auditor has picked up a particular, you know, obviously we also do the same audit every year on year. There is a guy who would have picked up some issues which may be prevalent last time also, but would have identified. It's the way of how you do, and there are cases where you might miss. And it is, if you are able to demonstrate that you have applied all standards, you have applied all diligence, then I don't think you should worry about it. And there is no foolproof solution to this. This, as an internal auditor, if guys you're going to be working for the next 20, 25, 30 years into this, these kind of situations will come. It's not going to be not there at all. That's not going to happen. There's no nirvana here.
Yeah. So thanks, Siva sir. I think another question that we have, and maybe more from a softer side, it is coming out. Internal auditors need to maintain their independence. However, in order to maintain credibility with the process owners, it becomes a dilemma situation to work on relations building or an honest opinion on the process. So it can be regarded as a negative remark on someone's process, which may have an impact on their annual, I think, perfection was something which was envisaged. So how should an internal auditor actually weigh this in terms of being honest and maintaining credibility or relationship point of view?
See, unfortunately or fortunately, as internal auditors, your independence takes the paramount. Your objectivity is the paramount importance. You can't, as I said, it's not important to be liked, it's important to be trustworthy. And that is why it is important on how you put across an observation, how you put across an issue. I can tell you that over the period of time, I also came from a school of thought whereby it was very difficult for me to put something positive in my audit report to the board audit committee. But we've started doing it. And it is not that I mean, in this organization, this is going to be my 5th or 6th audit committee. I started doing it in the last 2 or 3 audit committees. When we get a comfort on the people, when they get a comfort on you, and when you realize that the intent of the organization or those process owners is not to wish away an observation per se. So it's a journey. You will win some, you will lose some. But if you keep your objectivity, and I've also seen where you stick to your professional stand, even at the discomfort of you people, in the long run, you're completely appreciated. You may get bruised a bit during the journey, but you would emerge out victorious as long as you stay committed to the. But you will have to be very clear. You'll have to be smart enough. That is what the auditor today needs to understand: is how do you put across what observation to which person? And that is where different scenarios, different strategies, get your shikandi, you know, save something for a later date. All these things will come in place.
Very well said, sir. Very well said. Then we have, this is again an interesting one, how to deal with Bhishmas who are powerful but are not taking action due to some compulsion.
So when you say they're not taking action, again, it's again very, very clear. It's the shikandi. So Bhishma, if he's there, there will be a shikandi. First, you have to get the shikandi on your side, because that guy, and I'm not saying negatively harm, but that guy's agenda will be to prove a point to this guy. And that guy will be equally important in the organization, and Bhishma will not fight that shikandi. So first thing is you need to get shikandi on your side. And I'm telling you guys, I've seen it, toughest of the toughest guy in front of data gives away. toughest of the toughest guy, and if the guy might be the most polite, nice, but he will not accept your observation. But in front of data, in front of facts, he will give away. If you don't have facts, I'm saying let it go at that point of time. Put it as a medium risk or a low risk, or even stop at his level or at an MD level on that. Go back, build your facts, build your story. There is a little bit of personal time in investment that you will have to do as an auditor, because nowadays I think auditors not getting data is an very old story. It's not linked, because you have access to all the ERPs and everything. You will get your data. You will be able to prove your point. Go back to him. Maybe you find him to be much more patient. And again, I'm saying my experience in the last 2 years, there was an audit observation which at board level was debated and told us that maybe this is not that critical. We went back next audit committee. After the audit committee that time's audit observations over, we said we want to make this point. We explained the point again. We said this was your input. We agreed to this input, but these are two inputs which we had missed last time. This is the data. And before that, we had met every other process owner in that thing. No harm. Completely appreciated. They appreciated our stand, saying yes, these guys made sense what they are trying to say, and they appreciated our perseverance there. So it's a position that you would have, and let it go. At that point of time, we didn't argue. Let it go. Win or be right. That's what the question was at that point.
So your presentation has been liked a lot, and there is a request. In fact, I can see a couple of times where they are asking for the slides as well. I'm sure you will
see. It's only images which I have also downloaded from Google. More than happy to share. There's nothing which
Thank
is
you.
no issue.
So there are still more questions, and I think if it's okay with you, I can pick up those questions.
That's fine. Absolutely fine.
So, it says sometimes audit team observation sometimes the audit team observation is out of the given scope, and management sometimes never allowed to take up that observation since it is not part of the scope. So what is the responsibility of auditors in this regard?
Who is management is very important. I think if it is the process owner who has raised it, I don't think there is any problem, and that's where the auditor should go to the next level and put it across straightforward. Say, listen, I picked up a debtors audit. I found this issue with sales return, or I found this issue with the supply chain aspect. We have not been done this. This is what is your view? There is nothing wrong in going to the next level, and that's the best way to do. Someone challenges you on scope, and it all depends on how strong your board audit committee is, how strong your senior management is, what's the equation, what's the relationship, how involved the board is with this. But there is nothing wrong. You go to the next stage. He may thrash you out saying, "Yeah, theek hai, aise tum log aapas mein dekh lo," but you've done your job. You've done your job. And then as a chief internal auditor, you should take it in the scope next year.
Right, sir. I think Insuk has just given a clarification, and we can pick it or we can separately also answer that. So the thin line of difference between audit and assessment. So he was basically referring to the external certified assessor. And when the assessor is trying to look into the details and tries to circle back with the data which is being used by the internal auditors, and there could be a different finding that comes across. So I think somewhere he was hinting on that particular thing. An outcome of a data analytics which is different by what the assessor did, an external certified assessor, and what an internal auditor did. I think maybe it will also be with the objectives with which that analysis has been. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that's what, when I was reading it, I thought I'll just share that with you as well. So we still have a couple of more questions. Loyalty is a double-edged sword. Don't you agree? What is the way out?
Loyalty to whom? I think you should be loyalty to your objective. That's it. And that cannot be. You will face some personal pitfalls in life. You may have a packet of milk less for some time, but as you progress in life, if you are loyal to your what your karma or dharma as it says in Gita, then it can't be called as a double-edged sword. You will face some personal challenges, but you have to take the road less strong.
Yeah. So there's another one. I think with your rich experience, Siva sir, you can you can actually guide on this question. So once a process is reviewed and given effective by internal auditor, same process gets an audit observation by stat auditor. And the stat auditor relies on internal audit review for their audit opinion. Will this situation bring a doubt by statutory auditors on the IA team audit quality and opinion?
Dekho, if you look at it very dispassionately, okay, you've done an audit, you've given an effective, and then this guy has come and picked up something. Obviously, he will have a concern. It's the same way. If your past team had not found out something and you are finding something which was prevalent in past, you would also have a you will also have a doubt on your own your own colleague or your own team member who would have done the audit in the past. So it's a very natural aspect. Like the statutory auditor, I mean, again, I'm saying if you demonstrate what you did was as per a certain specified standards, you have done all your logical sampling, you have validated the data, you have cross-checked the data with independent source, this is the risk assessment you did, this is how you evaluated the risk. There could be different other ways of looking at it. Statutory auditor, and let's face it, I mean, let's face it, I am 101% sure that each of our internal auditors must be coming with accounting issues which would have been a part of a signed off balance sheet by the statutory auditor. Does it make the statutory auditor completely unreliable unless and until something very glaring or whatever? No. We all understand that, if you have said, I mean, if everything in that process was wrong, if let's say it's a purchase to pay, right from price discovery to ordering to receiving to payment, everything was wrong and everything has an issue by statutory auditor and we have rated it as effective, maybe yes, yeah. Then it's definitely a point that we have to introspect whether we have done it correctly or not. I'm not saying that we are always right by not picking up something, but you will have stages. You will have if you have done your own effective risk assessment, you have done your own checks. I think it's good enough. We shouldn't really be worried much about it.
Yeah. So we'll go to the next one, Sivasa. I think the questions are flowing as we are discussing, so that's a good sign. I think impressive presentation that you've made. Your thoughts on how to deal with a process owner who is anti-internal audit? I think these are all softer aspects, and somewhere
I understand. You see, it's if a process, there are again two things. Understand why he is anti-internal. Okay, is it because he has a lot of things to hide, or he has been rubbed the wrong way in past? First of all, understand that, or he comes from a scenario where he has not seen that kind of internal audit, and you guys are more proactive. Understand why he is there. If he has something to hide, then obviously you have to go after him. If he has been rubbed the wrong way, understand it and address it, whichever way you would find it to be the right way. That's how I would probably say. It's very difficult to say. There is a one-size-fits-all solution for this particular thing.
Yeah. I think it is quite situational, like you said, yeah. And according to the situation, one has to maneuver it. Yeah. So another one. So what do you do if management persuades you to take up an investigative assignment?
If first of all, why is the management persuading you? I'm slightly confused. Management has all the right. You are an auditor. You do carry some kind of an investigative skills with you. And if you are the most appropriate guy, you should do it. Having said that, if it is outside your specific mandate, you need to speak to the audit committee or whomsoever gives you the mandate. In a lot of organizations, you may not have an audit committee, and therefore the MD is probably the core guy, and then you can do. But otherwise, if you share this request or with the audit committee and to give them the confidence that you will be able to do it, it will not impact your existing audit plan, and thirdly, it will not impair your independence, you should go ahead and do it. And I'm actually and please don't mind my saying it, it's why should the management persuade you to do it? Why are you not wanting to do it?
Exactly. I think that's the apt point as well, which Sivasa you made. I think if the management is wanting you to take it, it's a good sign that they have trust in you, they have confidence, and they know that you'll be independently evaluating things. So I fully agree with what you said. Yeah. We have another one coming up, whether positive assurance should be the part of internal audit report, or internal audit should only mention the exceptions which was found during the audit. So what is a good practice?
It depends upon the maturity of your organization, and depends upon the comfort that you also draw, and how much. See, ideally speaking, go by a simple stand that audit report is supposed to be exceptions. Okay, take that stand, and whenever you are going with a positive assurance, you take the credit for that, that you are taking that additional step and you are doing it. Remember that thing. Don't say that you want it, so I am giving you this positive assurance. No, always keep a stand, because you never know when it may kind of backfire, or someone else may use that saying, oh listen, you gave me a clean sheet on this one particular aspect and misread it. Because the way you can write a detailed observation, you can never write all the background for why you are saying something is a positive assurance. Okay, so please, it depends upon the maturity of the organization, how control conscious your team is. When I say your team, your entire organization is. How does the board expects you to respond to these things? And after that, again, do not make it appear as if they suggested and you did it. You please take it as a very bold, daring, first in industry kind of a step, and make your mark there. That's my thing on a positive assurance.
We have a last question so far, and I think somewhere the expectation from this question is that your entire experience gets answered over here. So what was your experience with promoter-driven company as compared to listed and MNC company? What is the kind of value they see from the internal audit function? So how is the internal audit value perceived by the three promoter setup, multinational company, a listed company?
So, a promoter-driven organization, when he hires as internal auditor, and when he does a little bit of researched hiring of internal auditor, and not just I want someone for the sake of complying with Companies Act, he expects much more than mere assurance. He expects a lot of value addition. He expects genuinely, I think, somewhere that is actually somewhere where the trusted advisor what internal auditors should be. There's the maximum opportunity here. MNCs would begin, and MNCs and listed companies are more or less, because listed companies could also be promoter driven. So I would probably put it professionally driven organizations, which could be MNC or Indian organizations, or it is a completely promoter driven. Professionally driven organizations, again, there are two aspects to it: maturity, how old that organization is, how much well entrenched, how well oiled that machinery is with which that organization is working, and then they would probably expect you to give them a very strong sense of assurance. That's how they would look at it. But again, that's why in my last PDM of Bangalore, where we had the CFO CAE conversation where this topic was taken, don't restrict yourself only to assurance. Do the value add. The challenge happens is when you do it on your own and not taking it to the board. That is where the problem is. If the board is keen on assurance, give them assurance. You do a value add, give it to your management. They'll be more than happy, and then slowly they will also start. Then you can move a little bit of value adds and advisory into the assurance flavor, and they will also never know when it seeps into your normal assurance reporting to the board. So that's how you need to build up. As far as promoter driven company, I think they are very clear. They expect a lot from the internal auditor and not merely just assurance.
I think personally I can vouch very well articulated answer, sir. And on the last one, which is the difference between a listed and a MNC and a promoter driven, I think yes, the common expectations are here across, but you have very well defined the unique expectations that are expected from the internal auditors, the eyes and ears of the management. I must thank you for such an enriching session. Believe me, I was actually taking notes of the various slides, and I observed that every slide of yours has some takeaway, which internal auditors, if you ask me, practically also they preach, they also practice all those things, but unknowingly somewhere it gets lost. It doesn't fall in the cracks. You spoke about the Lakshman Rekha example, outside in and inside out. I think excellent example which you gave, and personally I do feel that if this sort of a thing is controlled in organizations which you mentioned, the inside out, the outside in, to a large extent frauds will get controlled, because it is actually to do with inside out also at the same time, which is happening, culture and all. You spoke about internal auditors to be empathetic and not just sympathetic, with the Shri Maharaj example, the balance example, which was quite an apt. I think these are all softer sides also which internal auditors have to look at it. You spoke about trust. Yeah, the boy with the umbrella, I think it was also that the boy was having confidence that yes, this worship is going to have some results. So there is a confidence which gets instilled, and a level of trust which gets built, and that's the takeaway which I saw from that slide. I'm not picking all the slides, but some of the slides which I just took note of, and I wanted to highlight it, that you aptly summarized all the principles which internal auditors should actually follow based on the mythology, if we can say so. Respecting the rules, Drupad and Dronacharya was another very apt example which you gave. The element of trust which gets built through the Chakde example which you gave. And the story can go on. The story actually can go on. It is actually what quite enticing. And I personally feel that had this session been of not only this 1.5 hours which we've already crossed, but it would have been around a half day or 1 day, or even longer, we can have a lot of deliberations on this, and every particular step that has, or action that has been taken, gives some sort of direction to internal auditors in the process. So I wholeheartedly thank you for accepting our invitation and making this presentation, and we look forward to have you make many more presentations on similar as well as other formats. I know the rich experience that you carry, and it has got elaborated, very well explained and elaborated with the answers that you have aptly given to all the participants.
Yeah, so sir, everyone is thanking sir for the great session. There is no specific question, and wanting to know about the PPT, if we can share with them.
I will do that. I'll send it across to you, Sid. You can just share it.
I will do. Yeah.
Chanchal and
Amit, you are there. Any closing remarks from your side? I think we had a wonderful session, Siva sir. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. I hope you guys really liked it.
We all enjoyed. Yeah. There are a lot of comments that are evidencing that all of us enjoyed this session.
I'm Deepak here. So let me sort of also come and have a look at the big picture. So what are the takeaways? Well, we started with the objective of finding ways that facilitate knowledge retention. And our assumption was that people can relate to myths and mythologies that they have listened to in the past. And if we can take out analogies where mythology are used for explaining models, standards, and principles, then it would improve the retention. So what has been the outcome? Well, the outcome is clearly reflected by the number of questions that have come out from the participants, and it clearly shows that a lot of participants have been thinking on their own and basically coming up with new thoughts. Well, thank you, Shiva, for the wonderful presentation, and Sid for doing technical moderation. And Amit, do consider a sequel to this. Thank you.
Thank you, Deepak, and thank you all, and wish you all a very, very happy festival season around the corner, and stay safe.